This is the main thing this year. We have a new insurance plan called CLIP. CLIP stands for Crop and Livestock Income Protection. And we're going to throw out the livestock part. You can still have CLIP without livestock, works just as well. What CLIP does is it provides umbrella coverage on top of your RP policies. So you could have wheat, corn, and soybeans on an RP policy at 75%. You could take CLIP up to 85. So up to 75, it works just like normal. Each of your crops stands alone. That 75 to 85% chunk of the pie is going to be basically a whole farm unit. We're going to throw all the crops together, and you have to have a loss on all of your crops overall to get a payment. And we'll go through some examples. You can add ECO on top of this. You cannot use SCO because SCO and CLIP are basically covering the same spread. And you have to have your RP and CLIP coverages at the same insurance company. It's available in the blue states. So if you're on the Minnesota side of the river, you can wander in the kitchen, get a snack or something, because this does not involve you right now, which is too bad. For northern Minnesota, it would have been a good thing. Southern Minnesota with the corn and soybeans, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But this does cover all the RP crops, which is most of them up here now. The only livestock policy eligible is wean calf. And that's in 4 different counties. It's a pilot program. It's not very popular. It is not available in North Dakota, and you do not need livestock to have CLIP. The LRP insurance is the popular one, and that has nothing to do with this. It's not included. So to qualify for CLIP, you have to plant acres on at least 2 RP crops in a county. Wheat and canola, corn and soybeans, whatever. Not all RP crops are required to have CLIP. So again, you could have wheat, corn, and soybeans all on RP. You could choose just to put the wheat and soybeans on the CLIP coverage and ignore the corn. PP acres are not part of this. The barley endorsement cannot be on your policy to take CLIP. The minimum liability for any crop is 10% of the total liability of planted acres, meaning you can't plant 1,000 acres of corn, 1,000 acres of soybeans, and then 15 acres of wheat, because that's not going to be 10%. You have to be careful on this, because if you have a lot of PP, that's going to skew. We only look at planted acres. So we have to be careful for that if you're worried about PP this spring. If you don't have the 2 crops, if you don't have at least 10% on one, the policy is canceled because you don't qualify. I was trying to think of the best way to explain this because it is kind of confusing. So if you look at this, we got soybeans, wheat, and canola. They're all at 75. Well, soybeans and wheat are at 75% RP. Canola's at 70. Doesn't matter. You can take optional enterprise, a mix of them. We don't care. So on our soybeans, we've got $330 of coverage an acre. The wheat's $270. The canola's $280. So if you have a loss, we're going to look at each crop separately, just like we've always done. But for that CLIP part, we're going to throw your wheat and soybean and canola production all together. And it has to be below 85% of your guarantee of all the crops together to get paid on this. In my example here, I've got 2 crops at 75 and 1 at 70. So my little red bar goes lower on canola. So in canola, we're going from 70 to 85%. So 15% more coverage. Corn and soybeans, or wheat and soybeans, are just the extra 10%. All my examples pretty much are 75% RP because that's the most common, and taking CLIP all the way up to its max at 85. You don't have to do that. You know, you could have your wheat at 65%, canola at 70, soybeans are 75. CLIP could go to 80, CLIP could go to 85. You got a lot of options there. Just has to be 5% over the highest RP coverage you have. This is probably hard to see. Just a couple examples of how this would work. So the blue is your RP coverage, and that's the same as it always been. Every crop is on its own. The red is that clip coverage from 75 to 85, and the yellow is what you actually harvested. So in this case, we have a drought. We've got corn, soybeans, spring wheat, and on all three crops, you did not hit your 75% of your guarantee. You didn't hit that top of the blue. So you're going to have a pretty good RP loss here. You'd have, in this scenario, a $266,000 RP loss combined. And then again, you didn't get any coverage or any production from 75 to 85. So you're going to get 100% of your clip liability, which in this case would be another $177,000. So this is the best case scenario for clip. We have a drought or some other kind of weather situation. None of your crops meet your guarantee. You'll max out clip. The other scenario, in this example, same starting point, but now you had a really good corn crop. Your corn is 100% of your APH. You had a small loss on your soybeans. You had a $41,000 RP loss on your soybeans, and your wheat was a little bit over your RP guarantee. But because your corn performed so well, and for the clip part, we throw all three of those crops together, you do not have a clip loss. So just be aware of that. It works just like enterprise. You know, in enterprise, you could get held out on a couple units. The rest of your units look great. Those units override the held out units. Same thing with this, except now we're putting multiple crops together. We were talking about this today, that if you're interested in this, we can go back and look at, you know, if you had losses in 2023 or 2020 or whatever year, we could go back and do the math and see if you would have had a clip loss. That'd be pretty easy to do. So to complicate this, this is a 508H product. That basically is in the crop insurance rules that private companies can develop products. When a private company does that, not all insurance companies are required to offer it. So for whatever reason, of the companies we write with, AgriSampo, Great American, and NAU are offering CLIP. ProAg and RCIS are not. So if you were at ProAg or RCIS and you want CLIP, you are going to have to transfer your policy to another company. I'm going to throw a lot of examples at you here. I just kind of want you to get a feel for where these premiums sit. First thing I'm going to say is if you grow corn and soybeans and it's about a 50-50 split, this is not for you. Interestingly enough, mix of crops matters way more than acres. My top example is Barnes County, where I had over 3,000 acres of corn, over 3,000 of soybeans spread across 17 sections. And the premium wasn't much different than Stutzman County with just 300 acres and 2 sections per crop. That rate on the far right column is just the CLIP premium divided by the guarantee. Corn is the worst. Corn is always the highest rate. I'm not sure why. Corn kind of messes us up a little bit. So if you're straight corn and soybeans, we can sure quote it for you. If you're 75% soybeans, 25% corn, you know, it'll be different. We could quote that if you would like us to. Really works better though if you have 3 or more crops. So now let's switch over. This is Ramsey County, North Dakota. Here we're planting 4 crops. Everything is 75% enterprise, just because I wanted to kind of keep apples to apples. You do not have to have the same coverage on every crop. You don't have to have enterprise. So we have 4 crops, 500 acres each. So for example, if you look at canola, at 75% RP, you're going to have about $400 of coverage for a little over $11 an acre. That CLIP is going to add another 10% from 75 to 85. you would get another $53 of coverage for $2.37. And that's pretty reasonable. Corn, again, corn's our problem child. The corn is going to be $5.88. Now you're getting more coverage. You're getting $67 of coverage per acre on the clip. But when you look at the rate, it's an 8.8%. It's higher. Soybeans and wheat are pretty reasonable too. So you look at that and you're like, yeah, I don't want to pay that $5.88 for corn. And my corn yield's great. I'm not worried about it. It's probably going to kick me out of my loss. Let's take that out. And we can do that. We do not have to insure all our RP crops on clip. So now if I do the same quote and I just throw the corn out, our premium does go up because we've changed the risk. We've changed how, the risk is between crops. So it's going to be a little more expensive, but not crazy. And again, you're saving that $5.88 an acre because we took corn out of the equation. And this is where this gets complicated. Quoting for this gets messy. You guys have a plan, obviously. Our weather here can totally change your plan. I think we almost need to quote this with like a best case, worst case. This is my plan, what I want to do, but if it's a really wet spring, I have a bunch of PP. This is maybe another thing we should look at just to see how much the premium varies. So in this example, same as the previous slide, except now I've skewed my acres. Now I have way more canola acres than anything else. And again, that's going to increase my premium. And so just be aware of that. We don't want anyone getting sticker shock when they get their bill in the fall. So we want to quote, at least a couple different scenarios just to make sure you know what the range these premiums may fall depending on what you plant. We did have a question in the chat. Is there a date when you can drop out of CLIP? No. The only way you can drop out of it is if you don't qualify. Now, I did have the question, and I need to get this answered. If you sign up for 3 CLIP crops and one of them is 100% PP, I'm not sure if you have CLIP coverage on the 2 remaining or if it's canceled because you didn't plant on all 3. I'm looking for an answer to that. But that's a good question. So again, kind of trying to make some comparisons here. If you think CLIP is a bad idea, I don't want to combine all my crops together. Another way to get that coverage up to 85% would be doing SCO. And most of you guys now know how SCO and ECO work. A lot of people bought that last year. So just as a review, CLIP would cover 75% to 85%. And whether you have a claim depends on what your farm did. SCO covers 75 up to 86, so you get a little bit more coverage, but now your payouts are based on those county yields. You're going to have a county expected yield, a county final yield. The subsidy on SCO is 80%. If you take CLIP to 85, you only have a 56% subsidy. So in general, the SCO will be cheaper and you'll get a little bit more coverage because we're going to 86%. Now, in this example, this is still that Ramsey County example. My soybeans and my wheat were actually cheaper on CLIP than SCO. So whatever's going on rating-wise there. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So the next step would be then, well, let me back up here. Because CLIP and ECO are both going up to that 85, 86%, you can't take both. You've got to take one or the other, or neither. But the ECO starts at 86, so we can add ECO onto CLIP. And again, here's that same Ramsey County example. ECO, you can either take from 86 to 90, or you can take from 86 to 95. We had quite a few people do the 95% ECO because that's getting your loss trigger up as high as you can. But just for something to think about, again, if we look at canola, if we did just the ECO up to 95, we'd have $48 of coverage for $4.26 an acre. If we did CLIP to take us from 75 to 85, and then ECO picking up there, taking ECO 86 to 90, on the canola, we'd have $74 of coverage for less premium than doing the ECO 95. So just something to think about. And again, the CLIP is based on your farm. The ECO is based on those county yields. And again, we can quote all this stuff for you. And then I'm not going to go deep into these, but just some more examples I've done, just kind of bouncing around the state of North Dakota. This is Rolette County, canola, soybeans, wheat. Those were ballpark with Ramsey once we got the corn out of the mix. Emmons, here we have corn, soybeans, and sunflowers. And again, the corn, that's got a 13% rate on the CLIP. Again, if that was your situation, we could throw the corn out and just re-quote CLIP at just the soybeans and sunflowers, see where that is. Now we're out in Stark County, Western North Dakota. And I just highlighted this one to show that, you can do different things. I've got my canola, 70% optional units. Corn and sunflowers are 75 enterprise. My wheat, 75 optional. We can do all that. This one it was silage corn instead of grain corn. And that is the lowest corn rate I've seen for the CLIP. And again, it's reasonable premium.